Hello world, welcome to this episode of our Let's Code series, working our way through the Exercism track on, the Ruby track on Exercism. So not a lot of preamble today. I think pretty much I'm just going to get right into it. Let's hop on over here to Exercism. So we are still in, I think there's only at this point one or two left, the set of learning exercises. Let's see, if we go over to this view, it's not the view I was looking for. Practice, here we are. Yeah, so it looks like maybe just two learning exercises left. We are chess game. So chess game shows up. Where does chess game show up? What do we have? Ranges. So yeah, I took a peek. It's ranges. So we're going to be doing, presumably, working on an exercise about ranges. So as usual, you're following along, and I hope you've attempted to solve the exercise yourself. If you haven't, that's fine. You can watch these videos first and then go and resolve them. For all I care, you could just never solve the exercise and just watch these videos. I don't know how fruitful that will be for your own Ruby education, but I'm just glad you're here. So we'll jump right into it, start in the editor. I believe what we are doing here is essentially making a chessboard. So the ranks and files, which I believe are to be our 1 through 8 and A through H. So if you're not familiar with the game of chess, your ranks and files are named and numbered. The ranks are, I believe, the ranks are the columns. So as you're looking at the chessboard, right, let's see, chessboard. So yeah, this is great. I'll just go with this one. Your ranks are the columns. So from white, they start at 1 and they work up. So actually 1 would be closest to you if you are white, furthest from you if you are black. And the files are the rows. So from left to right, again, with white's perspective, because this is chess. A through H. And for black, it's in reverse from right to left. So that's just one of the things about chess is the board is oriented towards white. White moves first, and everything is oriented from white's perspective. So, I believe E4 is kind of like the common beginner's opening move. So pawn E4, you would take your pawn. White would take its pawn from here, E2 to E. So on E2 and move it to E4. And that's just a typical standard opening in chess. So we're going to define those, and we're going to have a couple of methods here that on a chessboard would tell us if such a move is, first of all, if it exists, if the square you're attempting to move to exists, and so it looks like we're going to be creating a chess player, nickname, last name, and first name. So I guess this module here, chess, is kind of like doing a couple of different things. So chess, in this sense, is sort of like the broad thing of the whole game. We're conflating the chessboard, the chess player, some moves, possible positioning. So we're kind of creating not really maybe a very realistic module here, but it's sort of everything. And something about saying the player is moving. So we'll figure that out. But the first thing that we want to do, as usual here, is we're going to run our tests and just see what happens. We, of course, expect that we're going to have some failures. We can see that we have 14 tests total, so that's nice. If I collapse these, so yeah, it looks like 2 easy tests here. We're just checking that we've created our ranks and files. And then we're going to be, so our methods are going to be, one of our methods will be returning a Boolean. So we can start to think about what that's going to look like. So true and false responses, valid squares. So it looks like we have just 2 tests for 2 possible valid squares. 2 squares that are too far. So a letter beyond H and a letter and a number beyond 8, I'm imagining, is how those will be written, those tests. And then so negative, so edge cases, right? Handling data entry inputs that would be invalid. Some nickname tests. I guess since we're learning about ranges, if I looked at these more closely, it looks like we're going to be grabbing some of the letters from a player's name to generate their nickname. Oops, let's see. And then some move messages, so also something to do with ranges. So yeah, this will be interesting to see. Back up here, essentially, we can see that our first test is failing because there's no constant files within our method, within our module here. So we can create a simple we can create a range as an array literal, and we run that test, and no, I suppose that doesn't quite work, does it? Let's see, what do they want us to do here? So let's go the onerous route here. Let's do it like the worst way possible first. And then figure out where we went wrong and how we can tighten this up. So let's see what happens if we run the test on that. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. So I'm wondering if I'm not understanding quite what we should be getting here. What we're expecting to return is this. What we're actually returning has been an array. So I guess we're not actually supposed to have an array, and that's still probably going to fail. Well, that wouldn't make sense because I'm actually surprised this failure wasn't worse than it was. So let's think about what this is wanting us to do. So we know it's strings, A through H, right? And so we know we can do this to array. So I'm just wondering, since I'm not really sure what this wants us to do, yeah, so that passed. It's not, I'll say this instruction is not entirely clear to me. Maybe I'm overlooking something simple. So the game, to store these, define the constants to do those. So in theory, we could use an exclusive range and this would still pass. I want to like poke at this a little bit and see. Well, no, that's not true at all. See, what I'm having trouble understanding here is it doesn't seem like it wants the actual contents of this range. HI, yeah. So why does that not work? But this does. Perhaps it's something to do with string ranges. Let's see if I can real quick pull something up here. Okay. So let's see, IRB. All right, sorry about that. Let's go back to this. So let's probe into this. Let me increase the font size here a little bit. Right, so do I need parentheses? My files. So interesting. So I think I've got some things to learn about Ruby ranges because I can. I suppose I could probably. Okay, yeah. I don't know. Just put the file. So that's all well and good. And it seems like it's very explicitly defined. So if I did, right, if I did this, so all of that remains true. Oh, whoops. Let's, yeah. So, right, because I'm trying to redefine a constant. That would be problematic. Yes, I'm doing some very bad things here. I'm trying to redefine a constant. Okay, so... I mean, this is all true. But interestingly enough, so it's stored as, even though it's exclusive, it's still stored as that definition. So that's interesting. That is not something I expected to see here. But now we know. And so that fails because I think that's where we started. And so 2A, that would fail. How interesting. This is strange. I'm going to have to dig into this later because it is not intuitive to what I was expecting. But that's fine. We can move on and probably have an easier time now that we have the one test passing. Let's do our ranks. Right, and so this is like, I'm just curious. Because they're numeric, so that still fails because it's actually interestingly defined. Huh. Interesting. It needs to be specifically that way. Not what I would have expected. Okay, but we have two constants defined, and it is our chess ranks and our chess files, right? So chess ranks and files. Good, so we passed that. We saw some stuff that strangely didn't work or didn't work the way that we expected it to. So you might have read the instructions, right? And said, can I do this? And in theory, this should also work. But, oh wait, because it has to be like that. So yeah, we could have done it this way. And it does pass, but I think you'll see that using this constructor method here is a lot nicer. It's less to type, it's more distinct, and pretty much, aside from the strange behavior we observed, which we would get in either case, I imagine, this actually does do what we want it to do. So, yeah, well, okay. So 1 through 8. What? What just happened? Yeah, so it is the same. So we would get those problems regardless of how we went about writing that. So it's curious to me. Apparently I don't understand ranges as well as I thought I did. But that's okay. We're here to learn, and we're here to find the happy path through this problem, through this exercise, to get to a solution. And, you know, it's a safe, really, like, there's no downside to trying different things here. To try things that don't work and to try things that do work. And then, so the hardest thing, right, is when we have a working solution and we want to explore other options. But it's so relatively easy to get back to a working solution. So as you go about these exercises yourself, I highly, highly encourage you to play around and find the way of writing this code that feels most natural to you and feels most like understandable. Like if your first your first attempt to solve some of these things works, but you don't feel right about it, you don't understand it, try another solution. I highly encourage you to do that. I'm pretty happy with the way that we have our ranks and our files defined. So let's move on to the next one. Yep, so we're getting a runtime error. So if we remove that line and run our test again, we should see that test 3 fails with a different message. So expected nil to be truthy. So this is interesting. The test assert, basically we're asserting, the test is written with an assert that this method call with these arguments should return true. So that's interesting. So we need to implement this in such a way that what it looks like is we need to check two pieces of information, both the rank and the file separately, right? So rank will come in and it will be a number. So essentially, does our ranks include rank, right? So this will still fail, but let's see what we get as an error message. Expected true to be truthy. Yeah, so those error messages are funny. They do, you can sort of interpret what that means. Basically, we expect this returning true. It's, honestly, these are the kinds of error messages that are not too important. Actually, that's not even the right test. Well, that's curious. So these tests maybe are not the best well-written tests because interesting. What we passed several tests with only checking that the ranks exist. Oh, I see. Okay, and then the next one fails because it's checking that the file is out of range. Okay, I suppose these tests are okay. So if I change this, right, so I sort of repeat myself here. And let me comment that one out. So now I think I will be in the peculiar state where a few of these pass. So that is valid because the rank, see, this one is, that's valid. That's valid. That's out of range. Yeah, okay. I guess we're not getting terribly strange cases. It seems a little unintuitive at first, right? But I suppose these work because we're failing one or the other. So yeah, I suppose these are actually pretty good. And then we have our separate pieces. So essentially we want to make sure that both of these are true. So we're just going to put an and here. Let's see. Why does it not like that? It's probably because I'm going full on Seattle style here. Let me include some parentheses. See if that helps. Yeah, so that's one of those cases where not including parentheses became a little difficult for the compiler to actually make sense of. So even though I prefer as often as possible to omit parentheses, this is one of those cases where it was detrimental to do so. So now we have 7 tests passing and 7 tests failing. So we're halfway through. Yay. Congratulations. Yeah, so cool. We can move on and start to figure out what this nickname is supposed to be. So just looking at the test, it seems like we are taking, I'm going to guess, the first two letters of the first name and the last two letters of the last name. So let's see. Let's see, we just take one of these away and good. Okay, so we are working in the correct method. Obviously, we kind of know that, but that's our way here as we play around and work our way through these exercises. We like to take these small little steps. As much as we know how they're going to turn out, we still like to explore them. We don't want to cut corners. These are learning exercises, and so we're going to try and tease out every little bit that we see in them and make sure that we're not making any more foolish errors than is necessary. But we will make foolish errors. It's me. And that's fine, because programming is just a wonderful exploration, a wonderful journey. We don't have to get it all right the first time. We just have to get it right eventually. Okay. Your employer may say otherwise about how quickly you get it right. But yeah, so let's see. We're going to be essentially constructing or returning a string here. So is that, let's see if we get this right. Is that the correct syntax? So yeah, I can type. I see. Yeah. So in this case, I may actually use the exclusive. I'm a little torn on whether I prefer. Right. So this is one of those like ergonomics things. Are you more likely to notice the difference in how many dots there are and then easily be able to parse? We're taking essentially the first two characters, right? Because it would be zero indexed. Or are you most likely to short circuit and instantly know that one represents the second element, the second item element in your string array, right? Because a string is sort of an array of characters. So I'm a little torn. I think for now I'm going to lean into doing it this way. So we'll continue with this and see how we feel about it. So that's one small change. Let's run this test and see if it sort of looks like we're getting somewhere. So yeah, so it looks like we're sort of getting somewhere. And then essentially we will... yeah, there's a couple of ways we can write this. Three quickly come to mind. So let's play around and see which way we want to settle on. So last name, let's see what we get here. So none of these will pass yet. You can probably see why. Oh, that wasn't actually at all what I expected. So here's what we wrote. And so that doesn't actually even do what I thought it would. Oh, I see. Because I'm actually... Okay. Yeah. So what we're essentially stating is, in this example, the one we started with, we're saying start at character 2 and continue until the end, exclusively, right? So DOE 012, but return the E anyway. Yeah, I don't know. And then this one does the same thing. And then this one doesn't make any sense at all. Continue until the -1 character and continue until the -1 character exclusively. So we actually get finally some variance here, and that kind of like starts tipping us off that, oh, actually what we need to do is, since we're going from left to right, we need to start at, from the end, the negative something character. So yeah, the -1 character would be not the character that we seem to think. So in the array, actually, it's not like a -0 character, because that doesn't make any sense. -0 doesn't exist. You can take that up with the number theorists as to why, but -0 does not exist. So, and this is where I kind of get the symmetry from the way we do the first name by exclusively doing it. We're putting that 2. Here we're doing kind of a similar thing. So we're going to the -2nd character, which in do is the O, including that, and taking the O and the E. So if we change the way we wrote this, and just out of curiosity, what does this look like? Same thing. I guess it doesn't really change when you're starting at the end, the way you write that. That's one of those things that I would want to look up and see, like, how that's actually written in Ruby to perform that way. Well, okay, so it looks like we essentially have what we're looking for. Let's open these 2 tests as well and just see that we're getting the correct characters. We can worry about the casing in a moment. That's sort of like a side thing. Yeah, so it looks like we're getting the right characters. You may be wondering, what if there's a 1-letter name? And we don't have a test written for that, so it seems whoever put this together assumes that no 1-letter name exists, which I would caution you about that. To make such an assumption, I would greatly caution you to avoid making such an assumption. There's a wonderful piece out there from Patio 11, Kazumius, what is his name? Patrick McKenzie, about it is just a mythical piece he wrote some time ago about the falsehoods programmers believe about names, and it tells you all sorts of things about what people get wrong about what entails a proper name, particularly around the world. So yeah, I would be very, very cautious about not expecting names that might be a single character. Maybe this code, maybe it handles it fine, and it's sort of an implementation detail that doesn't need to be tested. But yeah, I would just be cautious about that. Maybe write a test for it, just for the sake of just making sure that you have things right. But all that said, we're not going to handle it here because we don't need to pass this test, to pass any of these tests. So we're not going to worry about it. I leave that as an exercise for you. Just dabble with it and see what happens. Okay, so now we know this is good. And essentially what we need to do is take this whole thing and, what is it? Upcase it. Yeah, so that works. So this is one way to write this. It's a little bit clunky in my opinion. We could do like, I don't know, we could do this. This actually, whether this works or not, so that doesn't actually work. Surprised that doesn't work. I thought concat was, maybe concat's like, can I get string concatenation? So if your string is A, if hello in world and concat 33, I see. So if I understand that correctly, yeah, this is going to be gross. Actually, I should have left those on. Yeah, this is a worse way to do that. So I think we explored this. So essentially we have to take a string and call concat on that. If you really didn't want to do it this way, you could, this is even worse. I presume, I think that would work. Yeah, but you can see like we're losing the plot at this point. What is going on here? So probably what I would like most is a string literal. With some interpolation. Right, so let's see if I got that right. Yeah, this is, I feel like there's no great way to do this exactly. I could think of even more convoluted ways. But now that I'm looking at it, so we're interpolating and then upcasing the whole thing. So do I like this better or worse? I need to see them side by side. Let's go back to so I think that was our first way, and let's just make sure it still works. No. What? Oh, I missed missed a character. Yeah. So looking at these sort of side by side, oops. Oh, that's right. Wrong button. Which of these is actually nicer to work with? I think while I have a preference for interpolation on stuff like this line of code just gets a little it just gets a little like, now I'm exaggerating maybe a little bit, but it's a little clumsy in that there's so many brackets and all sorts of things working together that we can sort of honestly give things a little more room to breathe if we go with that method of writing it instead. And because we're only dealing with 2 items here, let me try one more way of doing this. Oh, okay, so that's not a valid way to... Okay, well, that was one more way, and we found it did not work. So I'm going to settle on this one. We can sort of give these like a little bit more room to breathe. There's only 2 of them. If we were going to have like 3 or more things, I would get a little bit concerned with this approach. But here, it's pretty definite, like a first name and a last name are going to be combined. So honestly, I think I'm going to settle on this. It's what I think I like the most. Cool. So we've got only one more method to resolve. So we're moving along. Let's take a look. Essentially, we need to get a message as for whether the move intended is correct. So remember in the beginning, I said that this is like not a very representative module of a real game of chess. It's only like, we're kind of looking at like a couple of pieces and that's about it. So we're not really concerned with like the chess pieces or anything. We're just looking to see if the square itself exists on the board. And with that, I see. And with that, you know, create a message that says to a person whether or not it exists. So, and that message would look like, nickname moved to, and I think that was in the instructions. Nickname attempt. Oh, interesting. So there's actually 2. We're going to have to return one or the other. If it's valid, nickname moved. And if it's invalid, attempted to move. Ah, yeah, okay. So let's solve for the valid case first, right? So get rid of this. Yep, okay, so we got nil. So again, let's start with interpolation here. Maybe it's right, maybe it's not. So we would call nickname all right, moved to let's see what this does for us. All right, so there was a correct move here. H8 does exist. And we see that our message was generated correctly. So that's great. Let's stash that away for a moment. Oops. And let's write our negative case. So Let's see, this person attempted to move to square. But that is not a valid square. Did I do this right? All right, that doesn't actually work. Let's run that again. What have I done? Maybe I've typed something wrong. Nickname, attempted to move to square, but that is not a valid square. All right, what have I got? My test is failing. DJer, yeah, attempted to move to I9. Oh, I see. Can I do this? I'm not sure that I can break a string across lines like that. That's probably where I'm going wrong. Yeah, that seems to be the problem. Okay, cool. So we've got that figured out. So correct move, off the board, and not a valid square. Yeah, so it looks like we have we just need to essentially figure out which to return. So what I was trying to do here is this is starting to get a little bit long for a line. I would probably find an alternate way to do this. For the purposes of what we have going on here, it's fine. I'm just starting to get a little wary of it. Maybe I would consider, I don't know what I would consider. I'd have to think about why we're returning such a long line of text. So I do a lot of my work within the realm of Ruby on Rails. And so like a long block of text is probably something else. It's probably a message stored in a database or a template, just HTML, and we're putting our variables into that or something. We could do a here doc maybe. But it's just kind of on the verge of being too long. So I'm going to leave it alone and we're just going to go with it. And that's going to be that. So now we have to think about what we're doing. So with this model, this module that we have, there's only two outcomes. Either it's a valid square to move to, or it's an invalid square to move to. Now, if this were actually like chess, there'd be, can the piece move to that square, right? So this would be vastly more complex because pieces can't move to just every square. Pieces can only move, they have patterns of motion that dictate what they're able to do. So we'd actually have to be checking, can that individual piece move there? But all we're looking at to see is whether the square is on the board or not. We're really just checking the boundaries of the board, which is kind of silly. But in this purposes, it's a one or the other. So there's sort of like two ways we go about this. And against my better judgment, I'm just going to write an if statement. I tend to avoid if-else statements as much as I can. But this is like not very realistic. So we're just going to roll with it. All right. So we need to check if it's a valid square. And essentially what we have is we need to take the first character of square. So rank and file. We are passing in the file, okay? We're passing in the file first and then the rank. So we need to take the last character and then the first character and see if that is valid. Did I do it wrong? I did this wrong. Okay. So we passed two tests, which are checking an invalid space, I9, which doesn't exist, and A0, which doesn't exist. But we failed our valid tests. Oh. Yeah, it would seem I have mixed these up. Can I do this? I can. Yay. Let's run that again. Oh, wait, that's not right. No. I didn't mix these up. So what are we doing wrong? For some reason, we are not returning all right, so if we pass in A2, and take so A2 by all rights should be returning a correct square, but for some reason we're returning the else clause. Why is that? A2, so A is the file. Oh, I see. So why are any of these tests? Oh, because, yeah, right, okay. None of this would be right because I actually did get these reversed. Yep. The ranks and the files. And apparently I still have it wrong. So A is the rank. No, it's the file. Right? So so A2, right? File rank. A2, file rank. But we're taking it rank file. So we want the last, yeah, so we want the last one first. That's why I did it this way. So what are we doing wrong here? If valid square, let's just check something here. 2. Okay. Yeah, let's... I see. Okay. We're going to go through this and solve this together. So essentially what we were doing is we were doing this. We were passing in these, okay? You should probably see by now. And this is going to fail because our ranges are defined as strings and numbers, but because square is a string, we're just sending the number, the letter, the string containing 2, right? So it's not numeric. So we have to essentially convert this to an integer. So that we can actually check if it's in our range. Yeah. All right, cool. a little gotcha at the end there. So we don't think that much about typing in Ruby, but it can still cause us problems. So cool. All right, we passed these tests. Let's submit it. Let's see if we get any instant feedback. I'm not expecting any. Nope. So we'll continue. Let's take a quick look at some community solutions. I know this video is going on a little bit long. I do apologize for that, but hey, it's a journey. Down in the mines, sometimes you get stuck a little bit longer than you expect to. All right, let's see. This looks very similar. Yep, basically the same thing we did. A little bit more verbose here. Let's see, what did they do? So we don't like this, right? I don't like this. Declaring a variable, it cuts down on the length of these lines, but it doesn't really solve any practical purpose. You're only going to use it once. It's kind of, I don't like that personally. That's where my opinions lie. But other than that, it's essentially the same solution. I think we're going to see a lot of these, which is slight variations. Same thing, just nick instead of nickname, which actually bothers me. I'd rather see it be nickname than nick, because I don't like abbreviations. I don't like shortenings, just for the sake of writing fewer letters. Same thing, arguably. I don't even know what they did differently. I'm sure it's something, maybe an extra spacing. Let's see, can we find... what are these? 17 is how many people did? No. Yeah, 3. Okay, so... Yeah, what did we do? How did we write this? I don't recall. I think probably we did a similar thing. Let's go down further. Here, okay, so we did the first and the last explicitly. This person used 0 and 1, which that works just fine. I try to indicate like we're specifically going for the first and the last, like as if we're ignorant of how many indexes are in there, but that's fine. Yeah, so this person used just the fully interpolated way. It's not bad. It's not great. It's fine. I'm happy with the way we did it. Let's see if we can get like, can we go further? Let's go to last page. See if people did anything like totally different or not. So this person did some, yeah, this I don't actually like at all. So they set the variable and then they do, depending on, so they save themselves nothing. They just made it more complex because now you have to realize that there's an if statement hidden in here. So I'm glad they did something different, but it's not very good. Let's see what they have here. Oh, so they didn't remove their comments. Wow. Look at all of that. Is that even a working solution? So it doesn't seem like anybody this, and you can probably intuit that, right? Nobody really did anything vastly different here. We only have like minor variations. And that kind of makes sense because there wasn't really like, I'm okay, here's something we can look at. There wasn't really a lot of room in here to need to do anything different. If this had been a real game of chess with all those variations, like different chess pieces, I think this would have produced a lot more variance of solutions. But being such a small composed exercise, there wasn't a lot of room for variance in how we solve this. This person did, okay, so they wanted a full class. They have, I think this is fine. See, like, it's different, but it's also verbose. So this would be probably a lot easier to work with for adding extra stuff. But it's also like more setup than is necessary for the exercise. So like they probably weren't here because they were trying to solve an exercise. They were probably here because they're practicing different things. I would hope that's why they came up with a solution like this. The other thing is I want to just point out, like, so they use guard clauses, which interestingly here, I actually, I kind of like this. I don't love it because like it's binary, right? It's true or false. Here they've had like it's false or true. Logically it does make sense, but I think it is a little bit confusing, right? So they set this up, it's either false or true depending on, so the two falses are if the rank is outside or the file is outside. So they're not thinking of it as the space is valid. They're thinking of it, are either of the components valid, or are either of the components invalid? And if that's not true, if neither of those returns, so if neither of these right? You have to think about how you say that. If neither of these evaluates, then it's true. Yeah, I don't think that's even the right way to say it. But anyway, if neither of these ends the method, then it's true. Similarly here, this is the, there was another way I was thinking about writing this, and I just decided not to do it this way. But you could do a guard clause here. So if it's valid, you return this. Otherwise, you return that as a default. But I don't really think, see, the reason I didn't want to go that route myself is because this isn't really about like a default response, right? And that the default would be attempted to, but that's not valid. You would almost think the default should be the valid move, on the assumption that players are probably not trying to move pieces off the board. So I felt like, although I don't like if statements, it was more accurate because you really do have, it's going to be true or false. So yeah, good on you for going through such efforts. But it's not a particularly compelling alternative answer. So I don't know, we can pick one more at random. I'm just going to go somewhere in the middle. Let's go to like page, I don't know, 15 and just grab, I don't know, whatever. First one. So wow, they really did a lot of setup here. This is redundant. That's totally not needed because it's in your if statement. So you're checking it once and doing nothing with that. And then you're checking it again and doing something with that. So I actually kind of like the way they wrote this. I probably wouldn't do it in the real world, but it's interesting. They did, it's almost cleaner looking, but it's also like you're so far removed from the fact that you're constructing a string. So I don't know, it's interesting. It's certainly different. I like it. I wouldn't use it, and I probably wouldn't let you submit that in code. I would probably kick it back in code review, but I like it. I like it. This person was thinking different. I kind of like that. But yeah, the variables for one-time use, I don't like. Okay, so we looked at a number of things. We're not going to find in here a different or better solution. Let's just take one more peek at what we have. Yeah, okay. Oh, I see. Yeah, so the difference was we just don't use the parentheses, which probably would be more clear in this scenario, but I'm not gonna. So we're just gonna take this and we're gonna mark it complete and we're gonna call it done. And I think that's essentially all that we have to look at. So there's our solution. We may be one of the few people who have, no, other people have files before ranks, ranks before files, files before ranks. We're going to find others. But yeah, we have a working solution. It's fine. This exercise is like so impractical. It's clearly a learning exercise. Learn about working with ranges. That was the goal of this exercise. It is not reflective of the real world, of a real world chessboard game, whatever. I mean, nickname, like what does that have to do with chess? But we're working with ranges. So we have a solution. It works. I think it's fine. I'm happy with it. There's nothing there, there are things that I tossed up between doing it this way or that way. We're not going to worry too much about that. We can be happy with this. We can move on. I would submit this. It's fine. It gets the job done. It's relatively clean. We considered things. We gave it some extra thought. So I think we found our way through the happy path to a good solution. I thank you. This video has definitely gone on longer than I intended or expected. So please, if you're still watching, make sure if you're watching on YouTube that you give a like, little thumbs up to this video. If you're not already subscribed, I appreciate the subscribe. If you're watching on Exercism, that's even cooler because, I mean, that's just great. Please leave me a comment letting me know if that's the case. If you found this on Exercism, I would love to know that. Most people are finding these videos on YouTube directly, which is great. Hopefully it's creating some awareness of exorcism. But yeah, no, this is great. Thanks for coming along for the ride. Let me know if you did anything vastly different or if this video helped you. So until the next video, thanks for watching once again. And remember, there's gold in them there rubies.